like you two. Okay.
Oh, we're live.
We're live.
Let's give everyone a wave.
Hey.
Okay, we'll give it to 11 and then we will start.
Great.
Yeah. Is everyone optimistic about the future of the workplace so far?
Absolutely. Absolutely. But with care.
Yeah, definitely.
People,
We need to carefully plan.
we're physical beings. We have to inhabit space. So there will always be a workplace. It's just a question of where it is and what it is.
Yeah.
So one thing we've got to figure out now. So is everyone happy with them? They want to mute their mics when they're not talking as well.
All good.
Just to double check.
All good.
Yep.
Fine.
All good. Yes. Thank you.
So where's everyone from today?
I'm from Munich today.
We've got Munich and Robin?
Paris.
Andrea?
Lake Como.
Oh,
I'm home.
Thank you.
But sure, I mean, Paris sounds wonderful as well.
no.
No,
Good,
I have to.
I'm sitting in Brussels.
Well, hello from
Yeah.
Brussels as well.
Yeah.
Fleur?
And Paris as well.
Yeah.
We could
Okay,
have
Paris
met,
is so
Robin.
Yes, we could have done it together.
What's Paris like during the September? It must be so beautiful still.
Beautiful,
Super
but
scenic.
with masks.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Have you seen the same number? I suppose you haven't seen the same number of tourists during the high tourist season as in
Yeah,
previous.
no.
Not the same, but the stats of Citymapper are quite incredible. I mean, the number of people in Parisian streets are roughly equal to the average of last year.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I will show the data from Citymapper in the presentation,
But
and
not the same people then.
not the
French
same.
people.
Yeah, mostly French people.
Yeah. Here in Brussels, at the beginning in March, it was really, really weird. I suppose everywhere. That was completely empty, ghost city.
Yeah.
We're alone
Yeah.
in the streets. It was really, really weird.
Yeah.
Now it's traffic is back more or less to normal, which is weird. Of course, as you say, everybody's wearing a mask as well, but in the streets. But for the rest, it's getting back to normal at least in the streets.
Yeah.
It's incredible how quickly we've gotten used to seeing people in masks.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
All right, everyone, are you all ready?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, hello everyone, and thank you so much to our guests and our viewers today for coming. It's very great to have you all here. And welcome to ThinkYoung in partnership with Steelcase's Workplace of the Futures webinar. It's very exciting to have you all here today, as I just said, and especially with COVID and everything that's still going on, everything's so up in the air with what's going to happen with the workplace. Are we going to be working from home? Are we going to be working in the office still? And it'd just be great to have a discussion on what direction we're all going to take in the future. So today we have 5 wonderful guests, and first and foremost we have Beatriz Arantes, who is senior researcher for Steelcase's Workplace Futures. Then we have the lovely Flor Padre, who is research director for Global Corporate at JLL. Then we have Robin Rivaton, who is investment director and author of several books for Indivest Partners. And then we have the lovely Gertrude Ingestad, who is general director for the European Commission under Human Resources and Security. And last but definitely not least, Andrea Gerosa, who is our own founder of ThinkYoung. So I'm glad to have everyone's expertise here today. I think we're going to have such a wonderful discussion. But first and foremost, I would like to start with Beatriz. As someone who is a specialist in the psychology of human behavior, I think you can offer us just wonderful insight on this topic. So I'm going to pass the floor over to you so you can give your lovely presentation.
Thank you so much. I'm take a second here to make sure my screen is showing. Is that okay? So hi everyone, my name is Beatriz and I lead research for Steelcase in EMEA. The Workspace Futures team is responsible for identifying the emerging forces that will redefine our world of work. And so we can help organizations redefine and reimagine the work experience in the workplace to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. And our topic today is indeed the future of the workplace. And I believe that it's helpful to understand where we are today and where we came from in order to understand and think about the future. So with that, I'm going to share with you a little history of the office. Here, come on. Next slide, please. Here we go. So a little history of the office. So back in the 1800s, industrialization was picking up steam. We started using machines as ways to mass produce goods. Workers shifted from working in their homes or on the farms where they lived and migrated in mass to the factories. And there, the Taylorist model was used to break up these larger value chains into smaller tasks that people could repeat. And we organized the office along similar principles. A command and control organization was set up with assembly lines of office work, and people came to their desks to work on papers to hand to the next department. They came to their desk where they had all their archives, all their paperwork, their typewriters, eventually desktop computers, landline phones, and they had to sit at their desks to do their work with their work tools. Everything was at the office, everything happened at the office, and everyone was at the office. And so we increasingly went to live in the cities, to work at our desks around the clock. Our lives are organized, not anything to do with the sun or the seasons, but with opening times and shifts. We get in the crowded and delayed trains for long, stressful commutes, to sit at the desk, and to keep the paper factory churning. Meanwhile, over the years, the nature of work has been shifting increasingly from executing rule-based processes to problem-solving and people-based approaches. Why did this happen? The reason is multifold. Computers have been digitizing work, and rule-based tasks have been automated. And this has begun freeing up resources from organizations. And then with international commerce and advanced technologies and lower barriers to entry, the competition has increased. And this has pushed organizations to have to continuously innovate and improve their services and the way they do things in order to stay competitive. A stable organization that just churned the same thing over and over again has become less competitive. And we have to find new ways to add value. And so not only has the nature of work been shifting, but also the meaning of productivity as a result has been shifting. We have to think about, we're moving away from thinking of productivity as production of things, of discrete items and units over a period of time, such as number of cars per day, or number of files completed, or number of calls taken per hour. It's shifting to more of an amorphous set of concepts around efficacy, and efficacy being doing the right thing. So we now rely more on the quality of your collaboration as a team, on your ability to gain alignment, the quality of the trust you have. And so even for ourselves, how do you think about what a productive day is? It's no longer, and it isn't, the number of emails you send. It's, have I taken the time to think and to really compose the right message to send to the right person at the right time to untangle and unlock a situation? And as such, the desirable worker traits have also been shifting. In the industrial era, we were training our young people in our schools to sit still and focus. and complete the work they were told and to listen to their teacher. And all these dispositions have been necessary to complete our office work. But today, we are not going to get far if we're not hiring and training people to be curious, creative, to be critical thinkers, to have emotional intelligence, to be resilient to challenges and change. And we look for people who care about what they're doing. Not that people didn't care before, but these things become more accentuated. And so we see all these shifts happen. And all these shifts have been happening in the world of work, and yet the way we work still looks so similar. As a society, we continue to live life largely in the same patterns, getting up at the same time, getting into those same traffic jams every day, to sit at very similar desks every day, and so on. And then the virus hit us. And we all stayed home. And during these times, everyone suffered hardships. We were cramped into small, expensive apartments that we had chosen in order to be closer to work and shorten our commutes. And all of a sudden, we were living in a cage. Parents not only had to work full-time, but also take care of their little ones full-time and become full-time teachers and full-time caretakers. And it was just overwhelming to combine these two worlds. And those others were lonely. And there was an increasing feeling of isolation, despite the fact that they were spending the entire day on back-to-back video calls. It just wasn't the same as the connections that we were experiencing in our everyday lives. However, despite all the hardships during this time, a silver lining did emerge. And it's like the myth of Pandora, where Pandora opened the box out of curiosity and horrible things came out. All the horrible things that plague humanity came out. Fear and night and death and suffering. All these things were now unleashed into the world. But then, out of all of these things that caused us misery, there was also one last thing that came out of this box, and that was hope. And that is the capacity to see a brighter future and to stay strong for brighter days. And something did emerge. Something bright did emerge from these dark times in lockdown. We awakened to our needs. After years of being told where to go, where to sit, how to work, we suddenly just had to figure it out. And over the weeks, as time passed, we learned individually what made us productive in our work, what made us feel well. And we were identifying the things we want from the office, the things we want from our work experience. And we want to design for our own needs, to live our own personal best lives. And what that looks like is not the same for everyone. Some discovered that there were many things that they could do remotely. Others discovered the value of the office for just informal conversations and bumping into people. Some discovered that they need to go to the office for this routine and structure, and that's the way that they stay the most focused and productive. For others, staying at home was the best way to get away from it all and avoid distraction. Others were completely thrilled to have complete autonomy and freedom to manage their workday as they wished. And many of us are questioning all the different ways that we have sacrificed our well-being and quality of life to sustain this routine. We're questioning the commute time, the tiny homes, and the need to just come up to show our faces and the pollution that all of that causes. We realize that there are probably better ways to organize our lives and our work. And now that we have awakened to these needs will not simply go back in the box. Maybe older generations have been sufficiently trained and that they would snap back into the old routines if they had to. But younger people have not yet been broken in, and they can and do question and defy how things have been done. And so the question for us today is, how will organizations react? Will organizations try to redefine the work experience to expand and give these new needs space to fly? Of course, it's very difficult to accommodate such a diversity of needs. It won't be easy to organize all of this. It was much easier when everyone just had to go to the same place and at the same time. So it won't be easy, and there are many layers of complexity. But it will also not be easy to stuff these new realizations and awakenings back in the box. And so here we are today talking about the future of work.
Thank you so much, Beatriz, for that eye-opening presentation. Especially as a Gen Zer myself, I'm glad I'm just coming into the workplace when all the change is happening and more positive impact on the workplace. But I want, before we go on to Flora and Robin to ask and talk about the discussion, what you've just given, I would like to go to Gertrude. And as someone who works and controls over 32,000 people at the European Commission, which is just a crazy amount of people to look after, and for such a traditional and bureaucratic, but such a well-respected organization, how are you going to sort of adapt and make the Commission into a more modern, fit it into the more modern style era for the modern workplace?
Thank you. So hello, everybody, to start with. Thank you for that introduction. And yes, indeed, it is, the Commission is a big organization. It's seen as rather administrative and bureaucratic from many points of view, but that's also what makes it so exciting to work with it right now. Because as you know, we have a multi-age, multi-site, multinational, multi-skilled workforce. And managing and communicating change to this group in a rapidly evolving situation in the middle of a pandemic was never going to be easy. But I believe, as I think you do, that we are privileged to be seeing the birth of a new working normal, which has turned some of our traditional ideas upside down. And it's really happening as we speak, and it's been happening now for a few months. So we were familiar, of course, with the idea of hybrid working life. We had a digital strategy for the digital workplace, which was a dream with some of our teams in my previous workplace for informatics here in the Commission. And we had the policies that went with it as well, telework and flexi-time policies. And we were actually rolling out this digital workplace strategy as well, working anytime, any place. But the real change came with the pandemic. So we were forced overnight, more or less, to accelerate the last parts of this strategy and we had actually 32,000 people working from home almost overnight. So that made the real difference. But overall, in doing all of this, now that I moved to human resources as well, my approach is pretty straightforward, and this is what is coming from the whole organization as well, the wish to do it this way, to put people first. If we don't get people involved in these changes, that can really impact their working lives and the balance between working and home lives, which is what we see a lot, and what we saw in your presentation as well, Beatriz. If we don't really get people involved, we risk alienating a lot of people. So how do you get them involved? That's really the big question, when people sit isolated at home. Now, during lockdown, we used weekly surveys, pulse surveys on our intranet to find out how people were coping. And those were really 4 or 5 short questions, some the same every week and some adapted to what we needed to know from them to adapt how we dealt with the situation. Fortunately, people were actually saying they answered massively, first of all, which is already a good start. And they were showing that they were staying very productive and very resilient. And we also used the intranet to communicate a lot besides the surveys to staff and managers about all the resources available to them. Including some which were designed specifically to help managers manage remotely. For managers, I think there's a special momentum because they've learned to manage in a completely different way. And with most of our managers, we've seen a lot of excitement about this. How do you actually manage remotely? How do you reach out in different ways? Many managers, or most managers, have actually started doing the daily stand-up meetings in agile format in the morning, so virtual, of course, but still to link in with everybody and catch up on what everybody's doing. So really shifting from from time management to output management, which has been very exciting for a lot of people in the Commission. And also, when I talked about the intranet and the communication with staff, we have a lot of channels, and staff have used all those means to actually really clearly let us know what works and what they think. And this has become an invaluable sounding board for us to check, are we doing the right things? Are we seeing to what people need? And what other things do we need to pay attention to? So that has really, really been important. And this instinct to put people first also means thinking about mental health. As you were saying, that Beatriz, as well, we see a lot of people not faring very well at home. And we need to think about the mental health and physical well-being of staff. And especially, I mean, this is super relevant during the mental health month. And this has become more and more of an issue that we're dealing with to look at how do we help people. Remote working does suit a lot of people, but quite a few do suffer from being isolated. And we have been thinking about how to build our new working lives so that we can bring colleagues and friends safely back together again, working in teams, bouncing ideas around and inspiring each other as before. We've also worked on what we call fit at home. We had a fit at work policy before. Now we have fit at home policies. To give people advice on things like well-being and ergonomics, and actually starting online activities between colleagues. We're doing yoga and things like that online, and also just helplines to connect to people when you need it. So you started by saying that the Commission is often seen as traditional, bureaucratic, and well-established, and I nodded to that. Well, it is some of those things, but it's also changing, and I'm very happy to be part of that change. We know as an organization in the 21st century that if we don't grasp the chances this new working landscape offers us and adapt where necessary, we will not be able to be the organization we want to be, one that young people will want to work in. We do not want to be catching the butterflies and stuffing them back in, to use your last picture, Beatriz, which I liked a lot. We want to really offer something for the future, an organization fit for the future that actually lets people work the best way they can and want to, while keeping the social contacts as well. So the good balance between remote and in the office, and with different sets up in the office as well, now that you have more space for brainstorming, for creativity, for meetings. You would do more probably of your individual work at home and come together when you need to bounce ideas and be creative. So that's what we want to do. And with that, of course, goes a lot of other work as well on processes, for example. But that's also something, it's a little bit outside of this webinar, but there's a whole change process going on. And we want to do it very, very closely together with the people to make sure that we have an organization fit for the future. So I will stop there, and then I'm looking forward to any questions.
Thank you so much, Gertrude. I thought that was very interesting to see how the Commission's going to evolve over time now with all that's going on. I would love to hear everyone's opinion on both Beatriz's and Gertrude's discussion. So I'm going to start with Fleur. Would you like to just tell us, based on what they just said, how do you think, and your own research as well, how do you think what changes do you think, what do you think the main changes are going to be following the COVID pandemic in the workplace?
Thanks a lot. Hello, everybody. So yeah, I totally agree with both Beatriz and Gertrude on the idea that today we are at the crossroads in a way. People have experienced many new ways of working. They were forced to experience them. And actually, we realized, I like your idea, Beatriz, around people really awakened to their needs, and they really realized they could work differently, and it was not a routine that was imposed to them. They were not forced to accept that routine, and they could find other ways that happened to be very efficient. As you told, Gertrude, they were efficient, they were productive working from home. So they really showed it was possible. And now it's not possible to come back in a way, because they have experienced this new type of freedom and they want to work differently in the future. But as you were telling Gertrude, I think you also need to be both optimistic for the future, but with care. I really enjoyed your idea because mental health issues are there as well. And we need to be very careful with this new freedom, because it's not so easy to work from home and to have a lot of autonomy. We need as well support from management. We need a kind of structure in a way. And I think the office can bring that type of structure, because if you feel like a very autonomous worker with no boundaries, you might feel a bit lost. So I think this is where the office can play an interesting role into sharing a common place and really being the place for building the right relationships with your colleagues, with your management. So these are my first impressions.
Thank you so much, Flower. Robin?
Hello, everybody. To be honest, I'm a bit torn apart regarding the question of the future of the office. As a venture capitalist and investor, I'm super excited because in 2 or 4 months, we have made 4 years adoption of digital tools, and as everybody said, the productivity has not suffered, and people have been used to new tools super rapidly, and I think it's a very good way for the future of our cities to be able to enjoy fully the benefits of digital for remote work, but also for telemedicine or e-learning and so on. But on the other part, I'm also an author, and I can't prevent myself to see that before the epidemics, there was another epidemic in our cities, loneliness, and most of people, especially among young people, feel at a frequent loneliness in all the geographies or all the countries across the world. In Europe, frequent loneliness, in Western Europe, frequent loneliness was quoted by 7% of people in our geography, and 14% quoted social isolation. Social isolation is just one contact at least a month, so it's super isolation for my vision. I think we had to reconcile and to take into consideration the key role of the office, both for integrating people, for training young people, for giving them the competencies, the core competencies to be able to compete in the traditional corporate structures, and to have access to all the information. I mean, more the information is public, more the private information is valued. So when you are a young graduate, you don't have access to all this private information. You are not in the email loop for a lot of crucial things to be able to manage in the enterprise. So you have to be able to at a moment to come back to the office to be able to have access to this information, to have training, and to try to reconcile this vision. I just want to have a few words on one of our recent investments. We have decided to invest in meeting venue companies, structuring meeting venues for large corporates or large organizations. These guys manage 8 places in Paris and Brussels, and we have seen a huge interest for companies to continue to keep people gathering in such places, and to continue to create and organize social bonds between the salaries and third-party people outside the company, because it's crucial to be able to continue to produce, to get the productivity at the same level we reach during the lockdown, because my main fear is that we can see a cliff at the moment. At the moment, your salaries are not totally engaged in the company, because they don't feel enough engaged regarding their colleagues.
Thank you, Robin. Gertrude, I know you have to leave us in a few minutes, so I would love to hear your final comments, especially on what the workplace would be like, especially for us young people. So I'd give the floor to you again.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so thank you for the comments as well. I couldn't agree more with what you've said there, as well as in your comments. Now, what we're seeing is exactly that the workplace in the Commission is going to shift, and that also has to do with the greening of. We want to reduce commuting. We want to allow people to continue to have this mixed way of working, and want to encourage people to come in more to work, to meet and to brainstorm and to bounce ideas and also feel identity. So the social part. But that means that the layout is also going to change. So our office space is going to look different going forward. But what we've seen is that the young people who come in now are actually already quite used to that. So for the young generations, so people that we want to attract for the future, this is going to be less of a difference than for many of the big part of the population we already have. Although this is happening there as well. Most people want to continue to work from home. And with that comes an awareness of what the office space will look like, needs to look like. So the changing ideas and appreciations about how we work and where we work is actually happening. But especially for the young people, as I come from the IT department before being in HR, we saw that very few who came in actually wanted to sit in a box. So and they were quite upset when they had to. So this is happening quite naturally with young people and with the young generation. So from that point of view, for me, it's also very refreshing to be with you today and to listen to you and to be part of preparing for the future for the Commission as well. So thanks again for the invitation and for your comments, and good luck with the continued web streaming that you have, the seminar.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Gertrude.
Bye. So now we'll be moving on to what the future will look like for the workplace, but especially us young people. And someone who's really got a lot of information about that is Andrea. So Andrea, I'm going to pass the floor to you. Would you like to give your presentation?
Thank you, Ulfet. First of all, let me say, because you introduced everybody, but you forgot to introduce yourself. So I'll do the house owner, and I'll introduce you. It's Ulfet just joined our team, so we wanted, in typical ThinkYoung style, to put someone very young, a Gen Z, on the spot and up on the stage, and she's used to do radio program, and that's why we decided that it made sense that she moderate this conversation. So we're very happy, and for the first 29 minutes you've done a super good job in keeping the time, because I've never seen something in Brussels happening so sharp and everybody being so well behaved in terms of time. So well done. When it comes to a presentation, I'll share my screen now, as I guess most of you know. We do have at ThinkYoung an intense and large amount of data when it comes to young people. And can you see my screen now? Not yet. Wait, you should be able to see it. Can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
It's working.
Okay, good. So I'll put this up, and we have done this survey on the perception of COVID-19 on young people in different industries and in the different sectors. The first one we wanted to look at, it's the health sector, and why? Because that's the one who's been hit the most by the COVID-19. So this is a focus on young people in the health sector. Biggest impact of COVID-19 on the future of work. The first one has been, as a reply, quite surprising actually, the focus on resilience. And resilience very intended on a larger let's say, meaning of the word itself. It talks about flexible roles and arrangement. This one we know. The importance of functional skills development. Functional skills are the basic skill, math, communication, but also ICT skills is including this. And it was really something that I would say young people perceive that it really takes a new way of working, meaning learning new skills, new way of working, and you have to learn new skills. And young people are usually very adept and learning new skills. But I think in a larger workplace where they were involved with people from other industry, from our generation, it might have taken a bit longer. Definitely a boost in non-traditional employee monitoring. And here we're talking about the health sector. So health data, virtual clocking, productivity checking. And as you know, the increase in part-time work, contingent work, lower pay. This was something that, again, on new generation hit a lot when a lot of countries allow the possibility to let people work part-time or reduce, let companies, let's say, have an easier approach to flexible timing. That clearly was a measure that companies had to take, but clearly had an impact, especially on the lower salaries, which are usually the one of the newcomers and the young people. So that's something that came up quite strongly. The main challenges of facing remote working, what's the biggest struggle with remote working was definitely unplugging for work and loneliness, the first two. I think Robin already said it, and this is something that we will see also later. The topic of mental health, it's something we never seriously considered. And this crisis, this pandemic, accelerated a lot of things, a lot of good things, which are here to stay. But I think it's key and it's important we understand that loneliness is growing among young people, also because of the kind of work that it's asked for them to do. The working, in front of a computer all the time, meaning you can work anywhere, meaning you can work from home. That's an important. Then definitely collaborating, communication, the fact that one of the biggest struggle, obviously, distraction. I mean, imagine we consider families, so father and mothers with children, but imagine someone young, maybe they share a flat with 4 or 5 people, and then they have to work together on a kitchen table and do that for 3-4 months. That's a lot. And then they were faced also with a different time zone, with different teammates, because many went back home, and that's something that probably when you have an office, you're not used to think about it. But the fact that you could be either extra productive because you can work around the clock, but on the other side, you really need to consider the timing people are working with. Impacts on education, employment, rights, mental well-being. The results show that the impact of the pandemic on the life of young people to be systematic, deep and disproportionate compared to other age. Young people are likely to see a long-term negative impact, in the sense of 70% of them are probably affected by anxiety and depression. Again, if this goes all in the same line of what we were saying before, of mental health being something that, as managers and as decision makers, we should definitely consider. Low mental well-being is almost double among youth than before. And this is something that we should definitely look and keep stressing, and that's why it came up several times. We also ask young entrepreneurs, and I'm almost finishing, and on young entrepreneurs, we ask them, how did you see the future of remote working according to startups? And this is a research that comes from a group called Founders Forum, and they aggregated 500 responses in this. And would you have full days in the office with the entire team? Yes, 84%, and no, 15%. Would you still like to have full days in the office? Meaning, do you move everything home, or would you still like to have office? And I think this goes in line with what both Beatriz and Flor were saying. People still need the need to gather, and still need a place where they meet and they share ideas. So maybe you do your individual work at home, and then the teamwork when you meet. And also they found out that they work longer. This is something that can be good or bad for productivity. We don't know probably yet, but definitely people feel that they're working more longer hours. This is 55%, 14% same amount of hours. So if you put together these two, that's actually quite high, goes to almost 70% of people who think that they're working either same or longer than before. There is a very last one, which is not from us. This is from Direct Apply, and this is the long-term impact of working only from home, and has been a bit of controversial. And actually, we also contacted them because we think for gender balance they should have probably done something like a picture like this, but also for an impact on a man. But just if we focus on what has been the impact, eyesight, inflamed eyes, dark circle around the eyes, so all the eyes part, the posture part, the fact that there is a lack of exercise, lack of vitamin D. There are many things that are long can become very bad. And again, it's something, and I think we should definitely consider this around everything that is ergonomic and working well. And I think, and these are just definitely we need to reconstruct our work is done, decide people to work or work to people, identify which roles can be done remotely, fully remote, hybrid, etc., and redesign the workspace. So this is definitely something we should look into, and these are coming from different. This is from McKinsey, for example, and these 3 points are, I would say, quite important. The redesigning of the workplace is something that definitely I guess you guys are very aware of, and I stop here with my presentation.
I have to say, I really hope I don't look like that Susan image in a few years. Hopefully the workplace doesn't do that to me. But anyway, I would like to move on to Floor. So if you would like to give your presentation as well.
Yes, of course. So I will just share my screen. Okay. Super. So on my side, I wanted to share with you a very complementary research to what we've seen already. It's the feedback that we collected from 3,000 office workers across the globe on their experience of work from home during lockdown. You will learn, as we were telling, that there are clearly new expectations for the office today, and how the people have made a new normal of their daily work, with a new balance that they needed to find between remote work but also office work for the future, so that new balance that needs to be found. Also, as the emphasis is on young people today, I wanted to show you how much the young generations are actually the ambassadors for the incredible changes that are happening now in the entire society. Because I think, of course, COVID-19 is a very challenging and difficult time, but it's also a fascinating time because we are living such a big change that we need to totally redefine the purpose of the office for the future. So it's full of challenges for all of us. As I was telling you, we conducted that major survey to really understand the impact of COVID-19 on performance of people. How much did they manage to stay productive at home, and the new role of offices. We conducted that survey with 3,000 office workers across 10 countries. And what we learned, first of all, was, of course, the massive switch to remote working. Of course, so 71% of our sample actually said they had to work from home from one day to another. And of course, this switch was even stronger in some industries which were quite used to work from home or to work remotely. What we learned from this survey, first key insight, was the most enjoyed elements while working from home. So clearly, we told it already, the first benefit of work from home has been the strongest sense of control over life and over time. No commute, flex hours, flexible work-life balance. So clearly, people have enjoyed it a lot. This gap in flexibility was really enjoyed. Second interesting learning, they really enjoyed as well the human touch associated with their home office environment. So they enjoyed the peaceful environment, the ability to cook their lunch, the ability to have access to outdoor spaces or to disconnection spaces, which actually gives us, it tells us a lot about the new features that people will expect in the future from their office. But of course, the picture is not so bright. And of course, we know that work from home has also provoked a lot of challenges. And when we asked people whether they miss their office, of course, they missed it a lot. And when we look at the numbers, actually, we realize that more than half of the people miss their office substantially, and even more among young professionals. Okay, and when we tried to understand what has been missed the most, actually, we've got an interesting learning around the connection between having a strong corporate culture and missing the office. And we learned that, as I can remind you that, so 58% of the people said they miss their office a lot during lockdown. But if we look at people that consider their office as a second family, people that really enjoy a great leadership that empowers them deeply, people that enjoy great purpose and meaning into their job, they miss the office even more. So this means that there is actually a strong link between a strong corporate culture and the attachment to the office, because the office can really play a big role in building the engagement to the company. It all goes together. It's about HR practices, as Gertrude was telling, but it's also about having a physical space to embody those new ways of working, those new ways of managing people. Okay? And if we look more precisely at what people have missed the most, actually, it's very interesting to see that it's clearly the human aspect of the office that people have missed. They have missed the human interactions. They have missed the ability to have face-to-face work with common understanding, bonding between people. They have missed also the informal communications, because a working routine is not only about producing, as Beatriz was telling, it's not only about delivering tangible outputs, it's also about sharing other things, sharing a common DNA, sharing culture, sharing common vision, and all these informal communications that you can have into a physical space were very missed by most of the people. Also, very interestingly, they missed the distinction between personal and professional lives. They missed the office routine that you can find when you go to your work and your office, right? And they missed also some very tangible aspects, like having the right environment to focus on their job, having an ergonomic workstation. So just to finish with what I wanted to share with you, with a focus on young people, very interestingly again, young people felt more productive than the average. More than the average, they felt they were able to deal with their current job activities. But more than the average as well, they missed the office. And why did I miss it a lot? It's not that much because they were not able to deal with distant interactions. It was fine to them. It was fine to use the technological tools to do it. But it was a lot because they missed the office comfort and they missed the managerial support. So this gives us, I think, a nice key around what the role of the office should be in the future.
Thank you so much. That was really insightful. Before we get to Robin, I would like to tell everyone watching, please send in your questions so we can have them for the Q&A in the next 5 minutes. Robin, you are an author of Smart Cities, and we would love to hear your presentation on the Workplace of the Future.
I don't have a large presentation, but I have 2 charts and a story I want to share with you. As a venture capitalist, we invest in maybe the most dynamic and flexible companies in the world, startups. And just at the peak of the crisis in April, we have a portfolio of 23 companies. Just at the peak of the crisis in April, 7 of them decided to reduce OPEX and to cut the office. So to move to a totally remote organization without any physical space to meet or to share. And most of them are very technological companies, relying a lot on IT developers and software. And they truly believe at this time that they will be able to manage totally remote companies. We are in September, 5 months later, and out of these 7 companies, 5 of them returned to a kind of minimal office physical space just to be able to share. It's not a full dedicated desk per person. It turns on a weekly basis, mainly 2 days a week. But even the most flexible, the most technological, the most digitalized companies in the world have decided to come back to the office. So what I want to stress out is the real importance of the physical space. We have already discussed about the epidemics what was locking before the COVID-19. I mean about loneliness and social exclusion. But it's really important to have it in mind that we cannot fight against the need for people to coordinate, even for digitalized centric tasks. And the other point I want to discuss is about that remote work is not about strategy or tools, or it's about culture. And I want just to show you data from Citymapper. Citymapper is a mobility tracking application, and you can look at the percentage of each city moving compared to an usual week, last week compared to an usual week. And you can see huge discrepancies between cities like Paris. 89% of the city is moving like an usual week in September, or cities in the US like San Francisco, even if the city is concerned by the huge fires in California, but or Tokyo or New York. And the reason is not especially the dangerosity or the epidemics, is really the cultural ties people have to work, and the feeling of the necessity to move to work for most of them. And the management in most of French companies, and even in startups or very digitalized ones, is a very still hierarchical management, and most people, both managers and employees, feel the need to come back to work, to be able to coordinate, to be able to share, to be able to see a lot of things we cannot see or figured out through a screen. So I just wanted to say that remote work is really dependent on cultural features and dependent on the way you manage your company and on the way across the countries manager could work.
Thank you so much, Robin. Oh, can everyone hear? Now we will move on to questions and answers. But before that, I wanted to make sure, is everyone happy staying maybe another 10 minutes after for a bit more discussion?
Yes,
Okay,
of
great.
course.
So let's have in some lovely Q&As from our lovely audience. And we have one from Alban Moreni. In the long run, do you think offices will shrink in real estate due to high proportion of employees working from home? I think, Robin, that'd be quite an interesting question for you to answer.
Yes, the demand for offices was under pressure in the last years because we increased the density and we shrunk the number of square meter per employee. Just to give you a quick fact, in North America, the number of square meter per employee just before the great financial crisis was 21 square meter per employee, and just before the COVID crisis, it was 16. So it was a 1/3 decrease during the period. And even with that, the demand for offices continue to grow. So I think the demand for offices, if they are new, if they are green efficient, if they are cool to live in, I think the demand will continue to increase.
Lovely, thank you. So our next question. Oh, we've got someone, Afet Soyal. Okay, do you think employers and employees' perception of the effectiveness of remote working has changed since the beginning of the pandemic? Beatriz, I will pose that question to you.
So I always believe that there's always more than one reality. We all live in different cultural contexts, and our companies are little cities into themselves, and they have their own cultures. So I think it depends a lot on even prior beliefs that the employer has. Employers who were skeptical about working from home in the beginning probably continue to be skeptical. And the ones who believed in it are probably confirming their beliefs. So I think it's a time for people to dig in, have conversations, look at the data, because the risk is that from these experiences, we walk away with our own biases reaffirmed. So I think, it's for a lot of employees, it was an opportunity to show that remote work is viable and that they are serious about doing their work and they want to do the best they can. And so I think it's there's going to be a palette. There's going to be diversity in perception. And what's important now, I think, is the fact that we're having the conversation and that people are looking to see examples of how to do things differently. And every organization, every employee is going to have to advocate for the way they see the future making sense for them.
Thank you. Flo, I would love to hear your answer as well to this question.
Okay, super. Yes, I have a slightly different point of view on this topic because I feel that as it was such an exceptional time, people have also discovered themselves, right? They were not too sure whether they were able to work remotely on such a long period. But they really realized that, they experiment their own boundaries and they realized it was actually possible, even though it was not perfect, even though they also met many difficulties. I think it was also a super experiment for everybody, to just go against what we were thinking from the beginning and just realize that, yes, we are able to work remotely. And yes, as an employer, I must see that people were quite productive. And it was not what I was expecting from them, So I am a bit more positive on the ability of people to change, because I think they were forced to change. But now, of course, the future will tell us whether this will last or not. And where I follow you, Beatriz, I think some companies might be tempted to just go back to the previous normal instead of inventing the new normal.
Lovely, thank you. Andrea, I would like to pose that question to you as well, just briefly.
I reply to you as, let's say, someone who runs, a very small organization, but runs it. I think I like what Flor said. People were forced to it. And so you didn't feel, or I didn't feel as a manager that I had to impose it on people. If you look at the positive side, we were kind of all forced by some external agent to readapt. And that was very somehow easy and useful in the sense of, okay, if I tell to my team from tomorrow, you all work from home and we see how it goes, some people might be against, some people might not believe in it, some people might not buy the idea. Here, it was mandatory. There was no, and that was, let's say, it made the life of someone who has to convince the team easier. And the second thing, which I think will last, is, and probably turns out well for Robin and all his investments, we definitely all increased our budget for everything that is digital. I mean, we are doing this thing on call on StreamYard. We have to buy an yearly account. We're going to use it. We have to increase the money we spend, on Microsoft Teams, on Gmail, on every new platform we're trying. There's Monday.com, Trello, Hootsuite. There are plenty of, and the old way of saying of the Americans, follow the money. Definitely, people. I mean, I'm a bit quite a late adopter. I opened an Amazon account. I didn't have one before, and I would say that's something that will stay. That's the fact that, okay, we can use it, we can try this. On the other side, I agree with you, Flor. The office helped to create a good. Sorry, you said the companies with strong corporate culture prefer the office. I think it's a spiral in the sense that the office will help that. So that's why I like to keep the office, regardless if I'm good at building a good corporate culture. The office will help me as a manager to build a good corporate culture, and that's something that I think people are realizing. So definitely the meaning of an office, the reason why you go to an office change completely. That one, yes.
Thank you, Andrea. Should we have our next question? Aldra, as she says, do you think the learning opportunities for young professionals will considerably decrease while working less in the offices? Beatriz, I will pass that to you.
I'd be curious as to why she thinks that. I think there's different ways to think about it, right? We can think that with online, we've seen an explosion of online opportunities for learning. We have more than ever before the ability now to learn things even in very small chunks, with people putting things on YouTube and these online learning platforms. All kinds of coaching you can get online. However, there is something that we have to consider, which is learning is not just about formal learning. It's also about what you learn, the information you absorb from your environment. So being in the office is something that exposes you to a lot. It gives you the opportunity to ask someone next to you what's going on. It gives you the opportunity to form an informal connection where you can get coaching and advice and someone, just a quick look here, what do you think of that? So, and I do think that the stronger your network is and the stronger your social capital, the easier that's going to be for you to get when you're remote. And it's going to be harder for the people who are more recent in the company or don't have as much of a social network, which is probably the case of young professionals who are even still learning what they need to learn, right? I don't think you even know as a young professional what can help you learn faster at work. So I think that is something to be very attentive to.
I fully agree. I think it's a key topic and key challenge in the future. I think going to the office for young people is key to really grow, learn, share experience, and you can have the best tools ever to learn digitally. You still need to meet people and to get inspiration from the way they behave, the kind of relationships they build, and so on. So yeah, very important for the future.
Definitely agree with that. And we'll have our next question. So instead of the offices, could it be a solution for isolation or for comfort, creating a different type of workstation all around the city? Robin, I would like to propose this to you.
Yeah, it's quite funny because 2 months ago we funded a company creating a new kind of asset class called the micro office, and micro office is like very small cabins like you can see in the offices, but this times this cabin were placed in railway station, in post offices, even in the streets, in and a lot of traffic strategic places. And I think micro working will be a new way to work in the coming years.
And I would just add that, we recently had this conversation also with a colleague of mine who wishes that he could have micro workstations at gas stations, because when he's going from one place to another, he feels like it's very rude to meet people and take calls in the car. So there is something that we have to think about mobility, right? Is that it takes time to get places, and we look for more and more flexibility. So if the world becomes your office, it is an interesting thing to think about.
And also, I think this answers the idea of having an alternative to work from your home office, right? Because you can go to the office, you can work from home, but there is also a need for the people that are not able to work from home to have access to other types of offices, and probably more spread offices across the city. So yeah, it's part of the future, definitely.
We will have one more question from the audience. And we have a question from Julia. In the post-COVID-19 working environment, do you believe that there will be any dramatic change in the working hours? Andrea, would you like to give us your opinion on that?
Well, dramatic, it sounds. I would say it really depends. I think it really depends on your function. I mean, I think a lot of things we're saying, we are considering the fact that we all work in fairly modern companies, new cities, and I really believe it really depends what you do. I mean, there are things when it comes to teamwork, you need to be around the table. You cannot be on a phone call or on a platform. And there are things like maybe research or coding when you program, but you need alone and you need silence. And there are things when you produce a good, you need to be in front of a good and touch it itself. So this will then make, I would say we will have dramatic change in working hours depending on your role. That yes, people could probably work either very early. I mean, if you take big production companies, it already happens. You go to the countryside where people produce cars, and the workers, the people who work there, they start at 6:30, 7 in the morning. They finish around 3, 4 o'clock, and then there is another shift. While the managers or the people who work in the office, they start at 8:39, and then they have a longer lunch break. And it really depends on your work, I think, and that definitely yes will have then an impact on the working hours, when you work, how long you work. People, and this one we know from data and from experience, young people more and more like to have different things. They like to work for an NGO, they like to work for a company who gives them a salary, they like to maybe write a book or write a blog that gives them half a day and a bit of money. They like to be tourist guide with Airbnb experience. So the 5-day-a-week work, that doesn't exist anymore somehow, and less, even before COVID-19. because this generation look for a more complete and heterogeneous life, that's for sure. So then how this will impact on the office hour, I think it really depends on your job function and your job.
Lovely, thank you, Andrea. Would anyone else like to share their opinion on that topic?
I think the thing that Andrea was talking about is the increased search for fluidity in everything, in our identities, and from the different ways we're thinking about gender, or the ways that we think about our identities in general, the places we want to work, the hours we want to work, the places we want to work. We've been living very regimented lives because it's just been easier to organize that way. It's just like comparing it to life before cell phones, when you had to organize, with someone, I'm going to meet you at the cinema at 7 p.m. I might be late, and if I am late, then maybe, you just had to come up with all these contingency plans for everything. Whereas now, you make plans 5 minutes. Hey, where are you? Can I meet you? And there's a desire to move beyond the regimented and very rigid impositions that we receive from school or from our organizations. And it's a real challenge. It's a real puzzle. So it's not something that is going to happen easily overnight, but as long as organizations keep resisting it, it's going to be like this virus experience that you say, we don't do remote work, we don't do remote work, we don't do remote work, and then one day something hits you and you have to, and you have no choice. And if you don't, you're being left behind. So I believe that, a different kind of work day will see the light. It just depends, how long it takes is going to be a question of culture, context, and how hard people push.
Thank you. I would like to propose my own question. As someone who's a Gen Z and is just entering the workplace, how can we sort of push together and make a better workplace for our futures? What ways can we do this? Roban, I'd like to start with you first.
Maybe I will pass and.
Don't worry. Fleur?
So how can you push your limits, right? Push your boundaries?
Yeah, how can we make the change needed for the future of the workplace?
You want to be part of the change, right? I think it's very important to really share your views, your vision, and to share as well you're willing, right? You're willing to change everything, because it's companies, they need dynamics, they need people will to build new things, to change the world in a way. So I think it's a win-win situation, right? If you're willing to change, to grow, to learn, and to invest in your company, then as a return, your company will offer more choice, more flexibility. So I think it's really a win-win situation. And I don't even think it's a matter of young generation. Today, it's really true for the entire society. People want more choice, more freedom. They want to learn, to grow. They want to do more than just the small tasks that have been given to them. So I think it's a matter of trying to find the right balance and the right combination where everybody's is winning, right?
Thank you. Anyone else like to share any comments before we head off?
I would just say that I think the most important first step is get to know your needs. What do you need and why? And with that conviction, find other people who share that conviction and talk to each other and propose something different, something tangible and concrete. You can even start small, but you don't need to change everything overnight. But if this is really important to you, that is probably very important to other people. And the more you put, as Flo was saying, as much as you speak up and put it out there, the more you'll find like-minded spirits who can help you in this quest to make things fit what you need in your and to have your best work life.
I fully agree. Don't let companies just impose you things. Just speak out what is key to you.
Thank you so much, everyone. That was a really insightful conversation. And just thank you to all our guests and everyone who watched us today. So have a lovely day, everyone. And thank you to all our speakers.
Thanks a lot, Ulfet.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, guys.